All right, hi guys. Time for another little update. It's been like 4 weeks, I think, at least, since my last post when I took the car for its first test run. And so, as you would have seen then, if you'd seen that video, there was a few things that came up from that first test run. One was the fact that the front brakes were sticking on, and so it was driving pretty terribly. I could tell when I was driving it something didn't feel right, and that's what it turned out to be. The front brakes were half locked on. So since then I have pulled the front brakes apart on both sides, pulled the calipers out, cleaned them right out, checked the seals, and put them back together and bleed the system again, and the brakes now work as they should. So it drives a whole lot nicer than it did on that first test drive now. Also, in the following drives, I noticed that the battery wasn't charging, and so that alternator, the original alternator that came with the engine, is bad, or it's not charging. Partly because I wired it up incorrectly initially, but also it turns out that it was missing the voltage regulator off the back of it. So it was never going to be a good long-term solution for my build here. So I tried to work out what to do with that exactly, because they're a hard item to source for these engines now. And so I made the decision to try and go with a simpler setup, and that was basically go to something more original to these cars, and that's the 17 ACR type alternator, or 15 ACR I think they came out with as well. So I had basically a brand new alternator on my GT over here, so I pillaged that and have put it on the Firenza. And I can show you that here. To make that work, I had to adapt the lower mounting point. You may remember, we might have seen that the original alternator mounted off the top, swung off the top pivot point, and the adjustment arm is underneath, whereas the new alternator here pivots at the bottom and the adjustment arm is on the top. So it's a lot easier to muck around with, to install and to adjust. A lot simpler connection for the wiring, just plug and play just like it did originally. And you'll see down here I've notched in, not very nicely welded, a bit of tube into my bracket there, which is the original steering pump bracket. And so that now swings off there and works nicely. It's a 45 amp alternator, so not huge output, but it's more than enough for this car, I believe. I'm not running a bunch of accessories that should draw a lot of current, so I think it'll be fine. So that's done and working nicely, charging the battery as it should. I have been having some issues with my oil pump switch for the oil pressure switch, I should say, for the fuel system, and that it's, after the car sits for a little while, it should be, when you're cranking the engine, it should be feeding the carbs with fuel, and it is, but it takes a lot of cranking to get that fuel back through into the carburetors. So At the moment I've bypassed that system, and so it just comes on with a key now. The pump comes on with a key now. So I am playing around with some sort of system where I can just have a priming switch inside the car. I did have it wired up into my brake pedal for a while, whereas when I touch the brake pedal, that would power up that would trigger the fuel pump to start working, and then hit the starter and away you go. Problem is with that setup that it was making the tail lights or the brake lights come on permanently with the engine running, so it was feeding current from the engine through the system back to the brake lights. So that didn't really work as well as I would have hoped. So at the moment I'm just still figuring out how I want to do that, but I think I'll probably just end up putting a primer switch inside the car. It's either that or I put a secondary little button on the brake pedal that doesn't operate the brake system to run a trigger wire from. But I've got a couple of ideas. I'll figure that out. But meantime, I'm just bypassing that oil pressure switch. I have also installed a fuel regulator just back here that I had sitting on the shelf. Sorry, just sitting in there. So the electric fuel pump I am running is rated at 3 to 4 psi, so it is very low pressure. But from what I've been reading in the forums, these carburetors ideally would have about 2.5 pounds of pressure to them, so I can afford to reduce the pressure from the fuel pump a little bit. So that's what the idea of that regulator is. Problem being, I don't have a way of testing that at the moment, so I'm just sort of doing it by trial and error at the moment. But hopefully that will just help smooth things out a little bit as far as the engine running is concerned. So that's done. I've also just been working on finishing off the engine bay, and I've installed the headlights just sitting in there. I have done a little modification with those, and that I've put a bungee on each one. You can see there, just a small bungee that hooks on the top and bottom of my slam panel there, and twirls around the back of the headlight once, and that's just keeping the headlights pressurized into their fittings. The fittings are not the strongest items. They're a ball and socket arrangement, and the adjustment screws you can see there what adjust the angle of the headlights, so they can pop out quite easily when you're adjusting them. So I've added those little bungees on there just to keep pressure on the headlights, so they stay mounted in there nicely, no risk of them coming out, and you can adjust them easily, and they hold that adjustment. So just a little mod that needed to be done. So engine bay is pretty much done. One thing you may notice is that there is no fluid, window washer fluid bottle anywhere in the engine bay. And so I've come up with a new position for that, and that is all the way down here. So if I was to pop the trunk here, I have a light. There we go. So yeah, there's the bottle mounted up in there. So that sits in there. I decided to put it in here just because it was the easiest thing to do. There was just not much room in the engine bay, and it's not the prettiest thing. Even if I was to buy a new one, they're not the prettiest thing in the world. So this was the best solution, and I just ran another twin core cable from the existing power supply for it through the back here, through a corrugated plastic sleeve. You can see there, so the power and the tube run through that corrugated plastic and run down through the boot floor, and then it's tied into the chassis rail with some zip ties, and it's all tucked away nicely, and it works perfectly. No loss in pressure for having to travel that far, so there's no concerns there. And essentially all I did was go to the hardware store and get a bit of garden watering tube, which is a 4mm diameter. And they have a very heavy wall, I guess, because of the nature of them. They don't want to get crushed in the garden, so they're a very heavy wall tube. And so it's suited perfectly. And it's just a pressure fit into the existing 6mm tubing. You can see there, it's just pushed in there. Perfect pressure fit. And it pumps away and gets really good pressure down to the front. So it's a nice little, sorry about the focus, it's a nice little installation there. I'm quite happy with that, how that's worked out. That's just my jumper cables there, and the battery box of course. So I do have the spare wheel out at the moment, just because the tyre's gone flat from sitting for so long. But also I'm going to put a narrower tyre on it. I think it's a 185 on there at the moment. And it really only needs to be, you know, narrower than that if I can. If I can get a 165, I don't even know what's available in 13-inch these days. But if I can get a narrower tyre put on it, it will just sit down in this wheel well better. So I'll probably get that done. It's only really a space saver tyre at the end of the day. So yeah, that's where we're at here. Apart from that, I've been working on the interior. And so, as you can see now, the interior is all back in, including my centre console. So that's nice to have that all back together. I'll just give you a quick little show and tell in here. So yeah, this is a centre console that I made myself quite a few years back now. And I've just reinstalled it as it was. I just had to do a few repairs because it turned out that the contact glue that I used initially wasn't very good quality, and it failed over the last few years. Just started drying out and the vinyl was peeling off. So I got some much better industrial grade contact glue and re-glued it down and stapled it around the back where you can't see it, of course, and that's back in again as it was. So basically it just houses my little old school Alpine stereo here, and also my light switches there, including a little telltale window that I installed, so when I turn the lights on it comes on as well. And if I turn that flash off, there we go. So that goes on and off with this light switch. And then there's a twin USB plug in there for all those essential devices we've got to have these days. And so stereo is pretty basic old school thing, but it works perfectly well, except for the radio station. And I've installed a couple of new box speakers to the side of it. So again, it's not high volume, high power. I'm not really interested in that. I just wanted a radio. And I just love the look of the old school Alpines. So yeah, that's about all I can show you in here. Really now it just needs a good detail. It's a pretty dirty and dusty still in here, but I'll run the vacuum cleaner around and give it a wipe down with some Vinyl Revive, get these seats looking good again, and we're pretty much all done in here. The only thing I do need to do, I've noticed, is the speedo is not calibrated correctly, which doesn't surprise me at all, really. It's not too bad at open road speed. It's pretty close actually, at about 60 miles an hour. It seems about right, but until I get a GPS in here and see how accurate it is, I won't know for sure. But at low speed, it's quite a way out. So I'll be looking to probably get some decals made to go on the speedo face there to indicate the right speed, which I believe is all that is required for a certification, and keep everybody happy. Yeah, so there we are. Job done. So really, I'm down to a very short list of things to do for this car. The main thing I still have to do, which you would have heard me talk about before and I still haven't done, is the lower arm ball joint, which I just have to get onto. I just haven't been looking forward to doing that, but I think I'll just end up taking the arm off and probably taking it somewhere to get the ball joint pressed off and new one pressed in, and then from there it's pretty simple, straightforward job. So I must get onto that. And from there, it's a case of getting a wheel alignment done, and then take it in for a warrant of fitness test and see what they say. They won't give me they won't actually issue me with a warrant because I don't have a certification for the modifications that I've done. However, the cert guy will want to see that warrant of fitness check sheet and know that it is at least up to a warrant of fitness standard, and then he's just going to sign off on the modifications. So that's where we have it at the moment. I have had to stick the original number plate back on the front, you may have noticed. And that has to go on until, again, the car's all legal again. Once it's all legal, then I can get the registration switched over to that personalised plate they've gone to go on there. Righto, so that's where you have it. I've got the door closed because the cicadas are really noisy still this time of year, so apart from that, so it's a perfect day to get some work done. So I better stop yapping and get on with it. Alright, so here we are, it's the following day. I spent a couple of hours yesterday afternoon pulling this apart and taking out my lower swing arm. And you can see that over here. So the one on the bottom of the screen is the one I pulled out, and the one on top is a spare that I've had on the shelf for a number of years. I can't even remember where I got that one from. A couple of weeks ago I pulled it out because I was just curious about how it all fitted up there, how the ball joint was to be removed, and I just thought I'd have a look at it. And it was very filthy, actually. It was covered in mud and dirt and a little bit of rust. So I thought, just as an exercise, I would clean it up and have a good look at it. And so I water blasted it and brushed it up with some hydrochloric acid and got rid of all the rust. And then just put a couple of coats of black paint on just to keep the rust off again. And then put it aside again until I came to do this job. And then yesterday, when I pulled this out, I was having a good look at the two, and it became pretty obvious that there was a difference here. And that difference is the sway bar mounting point. So you can see on the one that I pulled out, it looks like that, and it's quite a square looking thing, and it actually comes up higher than the swing arm. Whereas the spare one I had is a different arrangement, and it sort of sits more in line with the swing arm. So I didn't realise there were differences in these from the factory. It looks like I'm still learning things. So anyway, I thought, well, what's the left-hand side got on it? And so I had a good look at the left-hand swing arm, and it is the same bracket as this one, not this one. So it's had mismatching swing arms on it for who knows how many years. I have never switched these out before, and whether it was done by a previous owner who didn't realise the difference in the mounts, I'd imagine, I just don't know. In saying that, as I said, I've had this car for about 11 years, and I don't know if I didn't get that square swing arm with the car at that stage. And maybe that is the original swing arm out of the car, and this one was put in by a previous owner, and they just didn't realise it's the wrong mounting point there. I don't know, but regardless, it's a bit of a win for me because it means I've got the right swing arm to put back in again. So I'll be interested to see how it all fits up. The other little bonus is that it's already got a ball joint in it, and that ball joint appears to be in good condition. So I'm going to put that one back in again, grease it up, and see if it'll last for a little while. I do have a replacement one to put in it down the track if it doesn't last, and it won't last, simply because of the fact that I've lowered the car. It's pretty hard on ball joints, so it'll need to get replaced, but that's fine. I can do that later on down the track. I might as well get a bit more life out of this one while I can. If I was to put a straight edge on here also, you can see if I do this, So you can see, looking down on them, you can see that mounting point is quite a bit different between the two. So again, it's amazing that the sway bar I have in the car actually mounts to this old one in a way. And it's going to be even more interesting to see how the new one mounts up. But in theory, the one on the right there is the right one to go back in. So I don't know, we'll see how it works out. But I guess the upshot is that I have the new and correct arm to go back in, with a new, well, with a decent ball joint in it. I know, you know, you're probably thinking, well, why don't you just replace the ball joint? Well, because I don't need to. I don't have the tools for doing it myself, and if it's still serviceable, then why not keep on using it? If I have to switch it out in 6 months' time, then so be it. And just to show you the condition of this one, which is why I'm replacing it, you can see the amount of how dry it was, and I'm guilty of not greasing this enough, obviously. But yeah, it's pretty well flogged out, this one here. So definitely due for replacement, and glad to have this other one to go in it. That one's going in, and it is the correct style for the sway bar, so it'll be interesting to see how it fits up. And the bonus being, again, I've got a replacement ball joint, so I'm going to get that mounted up today and see how we go. From here, obviously going to get I have to get a wheel alignment done, but I will get it as close as I can today, and also need to replace the steering boot there, which I damaged in a previous installation of the steering rack. So I've got another boot to go on there, so I'll be doing that and filling the steering rack with oil, and hopefully that'll be the last major job I have to do on this front end here for a little while. Alright, so we'll get cracking and see how we go. Alright guys, just showing you how it's ended up. I've got the new lower arm bolted in, and you can see it in there. And I've also installed the new steering rack boot, you can see there. So from here I just need to grease those ball joints, and in fact I'm going to go right around the car and do as many joints as I can find, including universal joints, the drive shaft and so forth. And I can show you the sway bar bolted in there now, as it should be, on that, I guess, correct mounting point. Sorry, I can't really show you. There it is. So that all bolted up perfectly. And from here I just need to fill the steering rack with oil, and I should be good to go again here. The last thing I need to do is source some shock absorbers for the front of this car. These are very old looking things, and they're not adjustable at all, so I've just got to try and source some adjustable shock absorbers here in New Zealand. It seems like there's just none available from what I can work out, so without adapting something, you know, close, like from the Holden family. So I think I'm going to look in the UK next, or maybe even America, you know, from Jensen Healy or something along those lines. I'll just do a little bit of research on eBay, see what I can come up with, and get those on their way soon, and then I can switch those out. So yeah, that's the job done for now. I'm going to go ahead and get all those grease points done, and then I can drop it back down on its wheels. I went ahead and got myself a new grease gun today. I've been borrowing my father's one for the last few years, and it doesn't have a flexible hose on it, so it makes it a bit tricky to get to some of these spots. So I've gone and got myself my own one. There's the bottom one and the top one. if these are anything like the bottom one that I took off that you saw, these are probably completely dry, so I can see it expanding now as I pump it, so I'm going to say that's full. Alright, go ahead and do the other side. Final look over, sure I haven't forgot anything obvious. I've been through this twice already, just making sure I've done all the bolts, so it doesn't hurt to have a quick visual. You can hear my neighbour down there, got one of his garden tools out, sounds like a chainsaw or a chipper or something. I think he's doing something every weekend down there. Makes it a little bit tricky to do these videos when there's a noise going on in the background, so I've got the garage door down just to try and keep the noise down a little bit. It seems like I've got to plan my days a little bit on my videoing around what's going on outside these days. If it's not a neighbour with a lawnmower going or whatever else, and it's the cicadas going stupid, so seems like early morning, or you know, before sort of 9 AM is the best time to be doing filming, but that doesn't always work out to be the best time either, so it is what it is, right? Take these jack stands out now, and we'll move the jack over and just jack this up on this right hand side only, and that way the idea being that when you pour the oil into the rack, it gets some oil down the left hand side of the rack as well. And the nice man that gave me this rack, where I bought the rack off, put a note on there. You see the tag hanging off there, perhaps. Noted that there's supposed to be 150 mils of 150 mils or half a pint, sorry, whatever it is. He's left a note on there to say how much oil to put in there, so that makes my life a little bit easier. I just need to pull that top cap off, and I'll probably turn this right round to here, and then fill that rack up, and I'm good to go. I know you're probably laughing at the sound of my flip-flops here, flopping around. That's alright, I laugh at it too. It's good. It was that ball joint making that noise I could hear when I was driving, so that's good. Alright, so we're back down on the wheels. I'm going to take this for a bit of a run up the road and to see how it feels. there, or at least almost new, we'll say. Yeah, wow. Almost sounds like a normal car now. Even got the stereo, come on. So what are we doing here? All my gauges, I've got a nice full tank of gas. Water temperature's right on the normal mark. Battery is charging 30.8 volts. Oil pressure is right on 60 pounds, or slightly under 60 pounds. So everything should be systems normal. I guess it feels better. Got the windows up to try and help the wind noise. I know there's going to be some wind noise. It's just a cheap phone camera, so sorry about that. Let's see how we go here. Feels a lot better on the road now, just from doing that ball joint. And now, obviously, it still needs a wheel alignment, but it just still didn't feel quite right. So I'm really hoping that'll take care of the rest of the issue. So it's not awful; it's just a little bit wandery. So that's what I'm putting it down to. Those windows up. Alright, home we go. That was a nice little test. It's been a little bit more refined every time I take her out now. It's great. Positive results here. Alright, well, there's a nice little test drive. Again, every time I take it out, it's just feeling a little bit more refined and getting rid of those little rattles and bumps and squeaks and things that have sort of dried out over the course of the last 5 years. And just feeling, more and more like a car I can drive regularly again. So feeling pretty pleased with it right now. I'm down to a very short list of things to make this car legal. Top of the list right now is getting a wheel alignment done, and then take it for a warrant of fitness, which is for those of you outside of New Zealand. That's a road test that all registered cars have to undertake every 6 months to make sure the car is up to roadworthy standard. Generally it's pretty straightforward, but if you take care of your car, then generally you won't have any issues. So anyway, that's got to happen, and then from there I've got to get the car certified, and so again, hopefully that's a fairly drama-free process. So the next thing after that, or while that process is happening, I need to do something about an air filter. As nice as it is to have open trumpets, I really do want to filter the air. So I am going to be using the original XL airbox down that I've got here. I've already started modifying it. You might have seen in an earlier video. I've had to reduce it in width to fit in between my carburetors and my brake master cylinder there, brake booster I should say. So I've already cut it down. I think I took 40mm out of the depth of it, and I need to take that riveted flange off there. That doesn't need to be on there anymore. And this should be a nice little addition to the setup. The filter is still easily available there. I think they're common to Jaguars and maybe one or two other cars, so they're pretty easy to get still. So it makes it a pretty easy installation as far as an earbox. It's just nice to have a cold earbox essentially. So if I take that and show you here, I can. It'll sit in there somewhere, and I'll just take some ducting down and down, try and grab some fresh air down there somewhere. It's all pretty tight here, but we'll try and make it work. So that's sort of the last major thing that I want to do. It's not critical, but yeah, filtering your ear is always a good idea. So that's you'll see that happening over the next few weeks. So yeah, from here, as mentioned, just work on getting the car road legal. So I will post another video probably close to that stage, and we'll see how we get on. Cross your fingers for me, will you? Alright, cheers guys, thanks for watching, bye for now.